And we are back, Gridiron 360. Dave and Bill talking 2020 NFL Draft prospects from SEC. And we just brought you the top 3 wide receivers in this conference, and Mr. Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Justin Jefferson. We're going to dive into really a bunch of other names at wide receiver that we think will probably be picked up for the most part. We'll start with the University of Kentucky, my friend, Mr. Lynn Bowden Jr.
Mm-hmm.
He is a 6'1", 199-pound junior out of Youngstown, Ohio. Again, wide receiver, but
played a little QB in an emergency. They had, talk about a MASH unit at Kentucky last year. They had everybody get hurt. I think they went down. They had 3 quarterbacks go down, I think, during the year.
He played for the most of the year at quarterback, to be honest with you. I mean, you're 2018, his stats, he had 67 receptions for 745 yards and 5 TDs. This year, he had 30 receptions for 348 and a TD, but that's receiving, right?
Yep.
So he played quarterback most of the year for them because they just got completely annihilated at that position.
Yeah, here's the thing about this kid that I look at first and foremost. I watched him play quite a bit, and I will say this about him. I guess the knock about him, which is the reason I would be interested in him more so than anything, he's cocky. He's got an edge to him. He plays tough. This is a guy that had to tuck the ball and run a lot as a quarterback, so there's some toughness about him. Very physical, especially for a guy his size. Plays the game on the edge, fearless. And let's not kid ourselves. Kentucky's had some good games and played against some good, had played good competition.
They're coming along. Stoops has done a good job at coach.
Yeah. I mean, they've beaten Florida, and so they've gone in and done some damage. Yeah, I do like what Stoops has done. Stoops has put a few guys into the NFL since he's been there, and some good picks in the NFL. I like this guy as an X factor. He's the kind of guy that could be. I don't even know that I would slot him. He could play outside. Reminds me. It's going to be a weird comparison, but not weird in some ways. Reminds me a little bit of like an AB type player in game.
Attitude.
Attitude, no, because that's a really hard knock to give somebody now.
Meaning like he's a gamer.
He's a gamer, yeah, and he plays a lot tougher than he's built, so to speak. And that was kind of AB's thing. Like, AB looked like a guy that's going to be able to run around and do some things. This guy could. He could be physical. He could contest at his size. That's going to be the interesting thing to me is he probably is going to be a little bit of a project. Route running, and especially taking 2/3 of a year off from, being a traditional route runner. But I love a guy that'll tuck the ball and run as a quarterback putting a wide receiver back there, it reminds me of a guy, and I'm not going to give him this talent level, but it reminds me of Anquan Boldin. Anquan Boldin was a guy, and people may not remember this, was a very, very good, was actually brought in as a quarterback at Florida State and kind of got stuck behind some higher touted guys. So he said, screw it, I'll move out to wide receiver. And if you ever saw Anquan Boldin, he's the kind of guy you don't want to meet in an alley because he was a thick, strong dude.
Yeah.
And he played physical. And he came in and played quarterback in the last bowl game because our quarterback sucked and couldn't get anything done. They put him in there. And, here's a guy, physically got built much different than you probably build him if you were building a quarterback, meaning he put on some weight, especially in the upper body, which makes it a little harder to throw. But he played tough. And this kid, I saw some of that out of him that really makes me look at him and go, the kid's a football player. So you got to figure out how to get him out there.
He's not necessarily, he's an athlete, but he's not like, he doesn't have like superb feet. He's not extremely fast. So some of the gifts that other, especially receivers, have, he doesn't have. But what he lacks there is his gamer ability. Just toughens up in a game is pretty incredible. He's a fearless type dude. He won this year the Paul Hornung Award. And if you don't know what that is, that's the award given to the most versatile player in college football. He fits that bill perfectly.
Yep.
Okay, so there's none more. Again, he's not extremely fast. He is not the best route runner. He doesn't have the quickest feet. But what he lacks in those abilities, he definitely raises in the way he mentally plays the game when he gets on the field, and all those things go out the window. I mean, he feels like he seems like he has the mentality as he's just as talented as everyone out there, and he's not afraid of it. I could see him coming in and being drafted and getting on the field right away as a kick returner.
Yeah, I mean, I could be honest with you, depending upon where he goes, because we're starting to talk about guys that are going to go in mid to later rounds. Maybe he'd be on the high end, probably be a third rounder, but that probably be stretching it a little bit, and especially with some of the offseason stuff not happening. But I just there's something about him. I always love guys that you classify in that football player mentality, because you feel like if you give him a chance, I mean, every now and then there's a Tim Tebow who they just couldn't quite figure out where to put him. Now, mind you, some of that was in his mind. He wanted to be a quarterback, and he was willing to live and die off being a quarterback. This guy is going to go out there. You know what? Maybe talking about a guy like a little bit of Randall L kind of mentality, a guy with a little bit of versatility.
Yep.
But, they've said he's been clocked. He didn't have an official 40 time from the offseason. But, they've said they've clocked him at 4.38.
I was going to say
4.38. 3.8 would be fast. 4.38, which is still very fast.
Very fast.
Now, again, that's an unofficial clock time.
Right.
So, but you could see, like, when he ran, I do like he doesn't shy away from contact, which, given his size, want him to handle the vigors of it.
Some games, though, I have to check his fumbles. He did sometimes run with the ball that didn't seem as tucked away.
Yeah, true. But that being said, but if you're going to be a receiver, the worry of the way you have to carry the ball well, but the worry of the way you're carrying the ball is a little different.
Correct.
So as a running quarterback,
tuck it away like a running back, and that's what I saw was when he was running as a quarterback.
He runs like he's always in the open field.
Yep. All right. Let's move on from him. Interesting prospect. We'll move to the University of Florida. The Gators have Mr. Van Jefferson, a redshirt senior out of Brentwood, Tennessee. He is 6'1", 200 pounds, 32 3/4 inch arms. Hands are 9 1/8. Talk to me about the Vanster. I mean, this is a guy that certainly redshirt senior. He got throughout his career plenty of reps at the University of Florida.
Yeah, never really played. You got to remember the guy started his career on an offense with McElwain. Yep. That offense overall was pretty poor.
It just was. I felt like it wasn't as conducive to wide receivers' success.
Yeah, and it wasn't conducive to Florida's usually relatively wide open attack. Yeah. Going back to guys like Spurrier and even Urban Meyer. Like, he had some athletes out there that could go and run. It's going to be a little bbit tough to project him in a way, because what you went from was Felipe Franks, who clearly just wasn't the guy. He got injured, brought in Trask. Trask started his career a little bit like Tebow in the sense of running the ball a little bit more. But then kind of started to loosen up with the passing game. Got to remember they had injuries last year. Who was the guy that went down? The really, really talented number one.
His name, it's gonna come.
Oh God, I'm blanking.
All right, I'll get it. Go
but
ahead.
Anyway, he was incredibly athletic. He's a guy they lined up all over the place in the backfield and slot, outside. Ran a lot of reverses to try to loosen up defenses. Van Jefferson was solid. It was really hard to get a good feel for, some of Trask's limitations. One, in fairness to Trask, limitations of not expecting to play and start. I mean, remember, this kid he hadn't started a football game since his freshman year of high school when he came in. It was a ridiculous stat like that.
Trask came in, that's right.
Yeah, when Trask came in. So it was a little hard to see that. I didn't see a whole lot of just special out of Florida's passing game as a whole. So while it was competitive, I'm used to the Riddell Anthonys and Jaquez Greens. Tony, thank you. That's who it was. Those kind of guys. And then moving on to Harvin. And, Van Jefferson does not stick out to me like that. He did play for Florida. He's got a pedigree of playing in the SEC. Put up good stats.
Yeah, I mean,
so he's got an opportunity.
He's a guy that I saw a lot. If he got the ball in his hands, he was definitely a guy that tried to take the quickest available route to get upfield.
Yeah.
He just tried to get the turn and go north and south. So, I mean, here's an interesting thing that I didn't know is that, and I got this off NFL.com, he drew 11 penalties since 2018. 3 of those were against Auburn this past year in terms of pass interference.
And I totally lied. Jefferson, it says here Jefferson transferred.
Don't put that past you, especially in the NFL and how we have this pass interference nonsense, which I saw something today. They may do away with the review of it, which would be good. But the fact that he knows how to draw penalties in deep coverage, that can be a useful tool, my friend.
Yes. Yeah. He's what's a word I want to use for him? He's this guy's a little bit more of a technician, but I guess I just want to lie. He didn't play for McElwain. For some reason, I thought he was there for all those years. He came in with Mullen. I got to see does it say where he came from? I don't know. Maybe Gator receivers just stick on my mind. I feel like they all been there forever. But anyway, he's one of those guys that I think maybe later rounds, probably more of a, this is the kind of guys I think that are going to get hurt by the lack of the offseason work. I think pretty much everybody we talk about from here on out is going to have that problem at the wide receiver role.
Sure.
And I just, I don't know that he's special enough and can stand out enough. Could be a practice squad kind of guy for a little while and maybe work his way in, special teams, that kind of thing.
All right, well, let's move on to our team nearest to us in the SEC, and that's the University of Georgia Bulldogs. Sorry, a little screaming quarantine kids in the little play pool. Sorry. So where were we? Mr. Lawrence Cager, the University of Georgia Bulldog. He is from Baltimore, Maryland, a redshirt senior, 6'5", 220, 33 3/8 arms, 8. This is longest arms, biggest guy, heaviest guy, little hands, little bitty hands.
He's got what do they call those, baby hands? He's got baby hands?
Little hands.
He's a circus carny.
8 7/8, just under 9 inches in hands. Mr. Lawrence Cager, obviously has the size. We saw him make some plays this year in an offense that was severely lacking a passing game.
Yep.
And one of the quarterbacks we talked about, Jake Fromm, love him, but under 50% completion percentage most of the year, so that doesn't help the receivers. Also, in the fact that there wasn't like a clear-cut number one on that team. Nobody was extremely polished, despite this guy being a redshirt senior. They had a freshman in Blaylock step in. They had injuries. They have some guys. They had a good offensive line and good running game. And the SEC East isn't the most daunting if you're talking about the conference as a whole. It's definitely the easier side. Did some nice things this year. Whereas you talk about Lynn Bowden and just like the game, he just becomes a gamer. I don't know if in terms of all, Sands, maybe Blaylock because he was a rookie. I think all the other receivers on the Georgia Bulldogs this year, I question their competitive toughness.
Yeah, probably. I'll say this. Probably the only guy, and he came on later in the year, was there. They had a 5-star guy, George Pickens, I believe was his name.
He's a rook too.
Yeah, he came in as a freshman.
Even as a freshman, I question his competitive toughness.
Yeah, he showed a little bit more in getting himself booted out of the Georgia Tech game, but he did not show up day one. Here's the thing is what you just said, all those measurables about Cager with an offense, you got Fromm, and again, this is whether you think Fromm was the problem or not. I struggle with it given Fromm's previous successes. And had a running game. This was an opportunity for a guy, when you're that size, you should dominate. And if you can't dominate at that size, especially against some of the competition that they played at times.
When you come to the next
level? I don't see it translating. They had guys that were far more productive, and 2 of them actually went to the Bears. One was a 7th rounder in Javon Wims, and the other one Wims. And then the other one after that was Calvin's little brother, Riley Ridley.
Yep.
And those guys, were practice squad guys for us, and I saw a lot more out of them in college and a lot more effectiveness than I did out of Cager. And again, Cager's got that, like you said, well, with the except for the little jazz hands he's got, you see physically an imposing player, and I saw him have some good games, but I never saw him dominate all year. I can't think of one
that's
game
the thing,
where he dominated.
You talk about a guy this size. I definitely saw times where if it was a contested catch, he's got the little hand. He might have little hands, but they are kind of claw-like. He can grab the ball. But one thing I didn't see, you talk about a guy also this size in T. Higgins from my Clemson Tigers. One of the things I talked a lot about him, the back shoulder throws, the go up and get it, 50-50 balls.
Body positioning, body control.
I'm trying to think of a time I remember seeing Cager do that this year, where he bodied a ball, went up for it. He's not a high pointer in terms of basketball go up like most guys his size.
I would say, I kind of look at it towards the end of the year where I would say, I know he did get injured. They had tons of injuries last year in the receiving corps. But I just saw more out of George Pickens at the end of the year. Yep. And granted, the Georgia Tech game where he got tossed wasn't really intelligent. But other than that, I saw some physicality. I saw some ability there. It just didn't scream special to me. I don't see a lot there with that, to be honest with you. Could he get drafted late? Potentially. I think he's more of an undrafted free agent and hoping to catch on somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll get picked up late just because he's coming from the SEC. He's coming from a good program, and he's got the size. And I do think some people are going to look at not just this past year, but the year before. I mean, Fromm's steadily kind of declined, unfortunately, and the rest of the team offensively in terms of the line and the running game have been pretty solid. So I think that he might get some benefit of the doubt and get picked up. I mean, he's a big dude.
Well, I'll tell you, probably the thing that'll be to me would be the telltale sign of him getting drafted will be does somebody project Fromm in a third round? Maybe early fourth. I think that's his shot. But if Fromm starts to fall to the fourth or the fifth round, it's going to hurt him.
Like
it's going to hurt a guy like
totally
this.
Hear you. All right, we're going to cut this one up right here. We'll move on to some more receivers in the SEC. Thank you for listening. See you on the gridiron.